Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be taking a look at the New York State Appellate Court decision which struck down the Democratic gerrymandered congressional map and state Senate map. So we're going to talk about, we're going to look more in depth at the congressional map, but first we're going to take a look at the decision itself and what it really entails, because this map, the one that we see here, was rejected today. Of course, there's been a lot of false alarms with the New York congressional map, and I've often had to make videos cautioning a lot of people about this because a lot of people thought that a month ago at the end of March that New York's maps were ruled unconstitutional. They were, but they were ruled unconstitutional by a Republican judge in Steuben County. This was a lower court. Obviously, the Democrats appealed to a higher court. That court actually sided with the lower court, and then, of course, we get to the State Court of Appeals, which is the basically the Supreme Court of New York State. Now, if you look at the makeup of the Supreme Court, the Appellate Court, all of the judges are Democratic appointees. You have 6 Cuomo justices and 1 Hochul justice, and you have one that actually identifies as a Republican. The rest are Democrats. And this decision was a 4-3 decision, which means you had the Republican and 3 other Democrats versus the 3 other Democrats. Now, I'm not exactly sure which justice voted which way. That's not really that important, but I'm guessing the Chief Justice voted with the majority since she actually wrote the opinion, so that's pretty obvious. But I'm not really sure how the other justices voted, but nonetheless, it was a really close decision. And the lower court decision that preceded this about a week ago, I'm pretty sure was also a 4-3 decision as well, with 1 Republican on the court. So it is really interesting that we've had very close calls. One justice could have made all the difference in this decision. We wouldn't even be talking about it, really. But the court effectively ruled that this map violated New York State's Constitution, which has pretty strong language against partisan gerrymandering. And just one glance at this map, it's pretty obvious that this map is extremely gerrymandered to favor the Democratic Party. New York is routinely a state that gives Republicans just shy of 40% of the vote in your average general election. For instance, in 2020, Republicans got 37.7% of the vote to Joe Biden's less than 61%. Despite that, though, Democrats were given, I believe, 82% of the representation in the new congressional map, which, includes the leans, likelies, all that, for the Democratic Party. So it gave Republicans just 4 seats, 3 in upstate New York and 1 on Long Island. And, if you zoom in more, you can see some of these districts around New York City are extremely convoluted. You have Tom Suozzi's district, which becomes D+10 in the old map. This was a D+6 and really didn't go into the city that much. There was a small portion that went into Queens. But now you have, or you would have had, Tom Suozzi's district going from western Suffolk County, I think it started really in Comac, and stretches all the way up to Rye, New York, which is in Westchester County, which, if you're from New York, is nothing like Long Island. Westchester County is, very liberal, affluent suburbs outside of New York City. Long Island is a much more conservative area in comparison, and also geographically, these areas are really nowhere near each other. This is about an hour drive or so from one end of the district to another, possibly longer depending on traffic, because city traffic is terrible most of the time. You also have the 2nd District, which packs all of the Republican voters essentially on the South Shore, all into one super safe red district. You have Lee Zeldin's district, which originally was R+10, becoming a D+6. And to show you how crazy that district is, it basically stretches from Montauk Point all the way out to past Central Islip and Brentwood, which are very blue areas of Long Island. We could take a look. No, that's not the one I want. We could take a look at the boundaries here, and I'm glad Wikipedia has them before they get taken down. But essentially, you have the district swinging from the Hamptons all the way out to Nassau County. You have the blue areas of Nassau County here, Plainview, and you have some Democratic strongholds as well, like Central Islip, like Brentwood, which, if you look at a precinct map, you have these areas of eastern New York, which are relatively red. I don't really like the color scheme on this map because it has, the light red district super pale, and it's kind of hard to see. But you have areas like the Hamptons stretching all the way out to Plainview and Hicksville in Nassau County, which this distance here is about 100 miles. So you're talking from Montauk Point all the way to Nassau. maybe not 100, you're talking about 80 miles or so. And it's basically zigzagging around to basically connect these blue areas together, solidifying this district for the Democratic Party. Obviously, 3rd district, we really don't need to talk about. That's the, I forgot what they called this. It was called they gave it a much more polite name, the legislature. They called it like the Long Island Sound District. But this was also an extreme gerrymander. You have Jerry Nadler's district, which is, very funny. Stretching all the way from Manhattan and then reaching down into the Bronx. You have Staten Island, which was previously connected to a somewhat more conservative part of Brooklyn. It was an R+13 district. It suddenly became a D+7, which would have probably doomed Nicole Maliotakis, even in a red wave year. And, you have other districts upstate. You have Albany, which is a blue city, divided in half into 2 districts to make Anthony Delgado's district a D+4 instead of it being an R+4 like it was in the old map. And of course, you can see in the old map as well, Albany was in a safe district, a D+16. Then it becomes a D+12 because they split Albany to make this district bluer, and so on and so forth. I could talk about the map for a while. You also have John Katko's district, which was D+4. It effectively makes it a safe Democratic district there, about a D+13, and John Katko isn't running for re-election. He was a much more moderate Republican that was able to actually win this district. Even in 2018, which was a rough year for Republicans, it was still a Democratic-leaning district, and he was able to pull it off. That would have been impossible with the new maps. So with this map being struck down, it has huge implications for not only New Yorkers, but the entire country. If we go back to the national overview here on 538, of course, now we have 4 states outstanding. Kansas's map was struck down as well. Kansas was effectively given a Republican gerrymander. The 3rd district was essentially put into a lean Republican district. I talked about this in my previous video, but these are the 2 maps that we're really waiting on. Missouri and New Hampshire, I honestly don't know what's taking so long. There's just a whole bureaucratic nightmare going on over there. I really don't know much about it. But this effectively gives Republicans a much better position at the majority. If you look down here, Republicans are so close to having a majority just with their lean and likely seats alone, without any toss-ups, really. They're super, super close. We're still waiting on Missouri, Kansas, and of course the new New York maps to really change this. But previously, Republicans were in a much worse off position, and Democrats were actually the ones coming out of the redistricting process with their gerrymandering on top. So that's no longer the case. Now, there's a few maps that have been proposed as replacements for the New York gerrymander. We'll go through each of them really quickly. You have the Stephen Dunn map, which I'm not really a fan of, just because you have these weird districts kind of stretching all over the place. This kind of seems like sort of a gerrymander in and of itself. And again, it makes New York's 3rd district also stretch up to the Bronx, which I really don't see what the point of this was, considering that the old gerrymander that was struck down basically did the same thing. So again, it makes Kathleen Rice's district an even district, which on the old map it's a D+9. So it makes that seat competitive and trades it off for this one effectively. Still not really a big fan of this map though, because you have New York's 18th stretching all the way up the Hudson Valley, which it is a like-minded community, but this is a huge geographic area that could be divided up in a much more smooth way like the old map did, which I actually just think is a lot better. It basically makes this a likely Democratic district now, as opposed to 2 toss-ups, although it does create a likely Republican district out of the 19th, which would effectively doom Anthony Delgado, his re-election campaign, and probably his political career in Congress anyway, unless he decides to run for one of the neighboring districts. But at least on Long Island, you have a slightly better map. Lee Zeldin's district remains R+10. It's almost unchanged. All it does is really stretch a little bit further west. But Anthony Garbarino's district, which was previously an R+8, now becomes an even partisan district, as with Kathleen Rice's. Also, Republicans will get a new seat in the 14th Congressional District because they basically, like I said, there's a lot of Republican voters in southern Brooklyn that kind of get gerrymandered out. That would be remedied under this map and effectively give Republicans an extra seat they didn't even have before. Now, the old map gave Republicans, again, 7 seats that were either safe or likely, and then, of course, you have some lean and toss-ups thrown up in there. The new map only gives Republicans 2 safe seats, but it gives them more likelies, and it gives them 4 toss-ups or even or slightly Democratic districts that they could theoretically win. So this map is a lot better than the old map, but I'm still not a huge fan of this. I don't really think this map's going to pass either. Some of the district lines are drawn in a really weird way. Again, this part of Nassau County, like Glen Cove and such, is nothing like the Bronx. And, it's connected by a really convoluted border here. So I don't know. I don't know if there's enough time to strike down another map, but I just don't really see this map going anywhere. I don't think Democrats would want to risk that happening again. Of course, one thing I forgot to mention is that the court itself is appointing a special master to draw these new congressional district lines. So these are some of the proposed maps. I don't know if the master edits these maps, if he just draws new ones, but we'll look at the maps that are proposed. We have another map by the Empire Center for State Policy. This map is a little bit cleaner, although it neglects to give the Republicans an extra district out of New York City. Instead of getting 2 like the previous map did, it just gives them 1, which is New York's 12th. Of course, you have Long Island having 2 likely districts, and you have New York's 3rd being a D+1, which in the kind of environment we're looking at, again, Tom Suozzi is a retiring incumbent. I have no doubt that this district would go red come November. Upstate, though, again, you still have this really weird kind of drawn 17th district, which stretches all the way up from northern Westchester County all the way up to basically the border of Albany. Effectively, this map, again, only gives Republicans 2 safe seats. It gives them 5 likelies and 3 toss-ups. So basically a similar makeup to the old map minus the extra district out of the city. And finally, we go to what I think is the cleanest map, which is the Republican plaintiffs map, the proposed remedial map, which I think is the fairest of the proposed maps. And I hope this is the one that passes just because it is probably the most representative of the population of New York. It gives Long Island 2 likely Republican districts, which again, if we look at the precinct map, makes a lot of sense. Of course, the 2nd district encompasses a lot of the south shore of Long Island, which you have some blue areas, but a lot of these areas like Massapequa, Islip, these areas, Bohemia, these are pretty solidly red areas, especially on the congressional level. So that keeps those communities united. You have New York's 3rd district moving a point to the left, becoming a D+7 instead of a D+6. And of course, you have a much cleaner, basically South Brooklyn and Southern Queens district. That would be an R+8, an open district, a totally new district for the Republicans. This map I definitely think is one of the best maps in terms of representation. Again, you have an even partisan map here of New York's 18th, even partisan district rather. It's the same as it was last time. You have the 19th, which is R+4, the same as it was last time. But it gives Republicans an extra seat that they really deserve in terms of fair representation. You also have Katko's district, which is the 24th, which is even. It was D+4 before, so that gets a little redder. Ultimately, this map is probably the cleanest map, and I certainly hope out of the 3 maps proposed, this is the one passed. I think it's the fairest map in terms of New York representation, and it will net Republicans an extra 3 seats that they didn't already have in 2022. So you'll have the 19th, the 18th, and this open district all potentially going Republican, which would give the Republicans, again, in the old map, the Republicans, I believe, had 9 congressional seats. They would have 12 in this best case scenario. So that is really, really, really interesting and goes a long way in the balance of power when it comes to the House races. So New York was super consequential. This was a big loss for the Democrats. There were a lot of people saying that this wasn't going to happen, that the map wasn't going to be struck down. And I did say in my video a few weeks ago that this appeal, the fact that this map could get struck down wasn't dead on arrival, meaning that I did think it was possible. At the time, I didn't think it was as likely, but once I saw the court decision last week that upheld the lower court's decision, and again, that court was a 6-1 Democratic majority court, I was pretty optimistic about the maps being struck down. So I think this is good just for fair representation around the country. There's obviously other maps around the nation, both Democrats and Republicans, that are very unfairly drawn that I wish would be remedied in some way. But I certainly think this is a victory for fair representation in the state of New York. and of course around the country. Now, of course, this is, again, a good sign for Republicans. They're going to be netting possibly 3 seats if this map does end up passing. Regardless, whatever map ends up passing by this, supposedly neutral special master, it should either keep the status quo or give Republicans even 1 or 2 extra seats, given the fact that even the old map, like I said before, wasn't exactly perfect and did gerrymander them out of some sort of districts. So anyway, guys, thank you all for watching this video. Please leave a thumbs up if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification so you don't miss any more videos I put out. And as always, again, thank you all for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.